Hi. I left my microphone at Mr. Tanner's house, so this is what we're dealing with. I am obviously cozied up in bed. I have growing pain currently. Don't laugh. I have been a long time growing pain sufferer, and growing up I was like, yep, this is growing pain, yep, this is growing pain. And then I got into like 15, 16 years old and was like, yep, this is growing pain. And now I'm 21, and I'm like, I don't think it was growing pain this whole time. Not sure what it is, but I just feel like there's so much in my brain, and I don't have anybody to get it all out to that doesn't sound ridiculous. Besides my therapist, and I don't see my therapist until Thursday. So let's talk to the most public, non-confidential platform possible, the internet. I just changed my piercings. When I was in New York, I got my triples pierced. 1, 2, 3, motherfucker. And today I got out of the shower and I decided, you know what? Am I supposed to wait another 30 days until I change my piercing? Yes. Am I getting really tired of this tiny, weak-ass little tiny iridescent sparkle, and do I want a big fat gem in my ear? Yes. Am I going to do it right now? Absolutely. But I have great news. I felt zero pain, zero tingle, zero schmingle. So I really think it was okay. I think the piercing place was being a little bit dramatic. They were like, you must wait 4 months. 4 months? Bitch, by that point, I'm not even gonna like the piercing anymore. So I waited 2. We compromised in the middle. You guys, anxiety fucking sucks. I've been feeling a lot of, well, we all know guilt is one of my favorite emotions. Guilt is one of my all-time favorite feelings. I constantly feel guilt. Constantly. About things that I should be guilty for? No. Just kind of like just cuz. But recently I've been feeling guilty for even having anxiety and having depression and being on medication and being tired and being burnt out and being like, I've had guilt for struggling. There've been a couple comments by either things I've heard online or just people I've heard in passing, or maybe things that people have said to me along the lines of like, young people don't know what real problems are. Why are young people so stressed? They don't have real problems to worry about. All these young people are all drugged up. What's going on? And that made me feel weird. I don't know why. It was like in the last 2 weeks, like a whole bunch of, and maybe those messages are always there, but one happened and I was paying attention to it and then I just started noticing others. And those comments aren't like necessarily like, well, I guess they're kind of bad, but not like, I'm not here to be like, those people are fucking stupid. Because it's true. It's like, we're all really not doing well. And maybe too, like, I hear it a lot in comedy, because I do comedy. I'm one of the youngest people that does comedy in the town that I live in. So a lot of times when comedians talk about my generation, they're making fun of like, oh, they don't know what's going on, right? We got the real problems. We, the older people, we have the real problems. And I just wish there was an acknowledgement of like, hey, maybe your problems are the hardest thing you've ever gone through right now. And maybe my problems right now are the hardest thing that I've ever gone through. Both of our problems are very valid. Both the problems we are facing in regards to like where we're at in life, whether that's being in your 20s and not knowing where the fuck you're going or what you're doing because there are too many mixed messages from too many people, or you're in your 50s and like going through menopause and you don't know how to handle that. Both of those problems are very valid problems. Both of those problems are very confusing things to navigate. You can't compare. Because a problem is a problem. And if a problem makes you stressed, it's stressful, regardless of what the problem is. Like when I was in high school, school was ruining my life. Dealing with the homework that I was doing, and dealing with friends and dealing with just high school was horrible. And it was really stressful. And it was a big problem. Now, right now, where I am at, right now in my life, if let's say tomorrow I had to go back to high school and face some of those problems I was facing at 16 years old, would I be able to handle them a lot easier now? Yeah, because those were my problems then, and I learned how to deal with them. But now I have new problems, and they're a problem because I'm trying to figure out how to deal with them. But I'll figure out how to deal with them, and then I'll have a new problem to face of a problem that I've never faced before. It's like just because you've conquered a problem that somebody else is facing doesn't mean it's an easy problem to conquer. Does that make sense? You think about little kids, right? And they're having tantrums over, not being able to fit their blocks in a bucket. And this is a huge problem because all the blocks have to fit in the bucket, but you can't figure out how the fuck to do it when you're like 2 years old. That right there is going to be the biggest problem you've faced. And so you're going to have an absolute tantrum, right? We don't shame kids for having a tough time dealing with problems they've never faced before. So why do we do it as we get older? It's the same sort of concept. Obviously, now that I grew up and I learned how to fit all my blocks in my bucket, that's no longer a problem for me. And if somebody put a bucket in front of me right now, I wouldn't have a tantrum about it because I figured it out and I was able to use that skill to get through the rest of my life. I hate comments from adults that are like, ugh, you don't know what stress is. You don't know what real stress is. You don't know what real burnout is. You don't know, ugh, you want to talk about feeling tired. Like trying to undermine what younger people are experiencing and being like, you don't get it because I'm going through something more extreme than you. You haven't learned anything yet. Like, you haven't even started to know what problems are like. Yes, I have. You just have a lot more knowledge on how to deal with different types of problems. And I'm just at an intermediate level of problem dealing. You have 50, 60 years of learning how to deal with different problems, and I've got 20. You have more than double the amount of experience of dealing with problems than I do. I don't know. Like, it's not like we go up to a 2 year old trying to fit their blocks in their bucket and go, yeah, you think that's hard? Try dealing with a mortgage and a car payment, okay? Shut your fucking mouth, bitch. No, we don't do that because the 2 year old has to learn a lot of other problems before they can get to the next level. And so it's like, don't tell me that I'm not allowed to feel stressed and feel tired and feel anxious. When this is my life right now is the biggest problem I've ever dealt with. I don't know. That was kind of a little off topic to what I was saying. But also, oh yeah. There's a failure of recognition from older generations, not from everybody, but at least from some people that I've heard of. There's a failure to recognize that times are different. Growing up now is not the same experience that our parents had growing up, which is not the same experience that their parents had growing up. You cannot compare those experiences. Our parents grew up in a time that their parents didn't know how to navigate. And now we're growing up in a time that our parents don't know how to navigate. And my kids are going to grow up in a time that I don't know how to navigate. That's just how it works. But from what I have heard and from evidence I have gathered and from what lots of people have said, the pressure to succeed and the pressure to be perfect has never been more intense than it is right now for our generation. And the pressure to be great and the pressure to have followers. And don't tell me that I'm not allowed to have anxiety when you don't know what it's like to be a 20-year-old, 21-year-old in 2023. I'm not going to tell you that you're not allowed to feel anxious for being, a 45-year-old in 2023. None of us know what the other person's experience is. I don't know. That's been bothering me lately. I was in line at open mic today and to sign up, and this wonderful lady who I do comedy with, and she's older. I think she said she's in her 50s or something. She was like, "Oh, like I haven't talked to you in a long time. Like how are you?" And I was just like, "I'm tired." And she started laughing, and she's like, "And that's it?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm tired." And she's like, "Well, what's making you so tired?" Which is a very valid question. But I was thinking, I'm like, well, it's not that, I worked out really hard. Like there's not a surface level reason why I'm tired. I'm exhausted just from dealing with life. Now, exhaustion from life, there's another fun name for that. One might call that depression, but trying to navigate, like, what am I going to do for a job? What am I going to do for school? Okay, school is ending soon. Am I going to move? Am I going to do this? Okay, I can't seem to clean my room because my depression's really bad. And oh, I'm really anxious. And oh, now I've got to go to another type of therapy. And oh, what's going on? And oh, I need to do this and that and this and that and this and that and this and that and this and that. And oh, I'm not doing enough. Well, maybe I should start doing more. Oh no, I'm doing too much. Oh no, but I have to do, Jasmine, you don't have to do too much, but maybe I do have to do too much. And then, oh no, I'm not doing, and let me try to not do so much. Oh look, oh no, now other people are doing more than I'm doing, and they're doing it a lot better. But I'm exhausted. I'm tired. Dealing with anxiety every day is exhausting. It just is. I'm exhausted. And I go through periods of life where I'm not exhausted. And my anxiety does seem to be under control. But when it's not under control, I'm exhausted. It's like my brain is a toddler that I need to take care of all day, every day. I can't just let her be on her own. She's not independent. My brain is not an independent. My brain is not like a 15-year-old that just got his driver's license and you're like, okay, you can go off and do things on your own now. I don't need to like super worry about you. My brain needs constant attention and love and care. My brain is a puppy. I am constantly cleaning up my brain. I am constantly, putting Neosporin and band-aids on my brain. I need to make sure my brain is fed. I need to make sure my brain is taken care of. I need to make sure my brain, I can't lose sight of my brain, because if I lose sight of my brain, then where'd it go? Oh, don't run away. Come back, come back, come back. My brain can't be kidnapped. Can't let my brain be kidnapped by, the depression kidnappers. My brain needs constant attention and caregiving. And the average person's brain doesn't need that. The average person's brain, average. A brain without mental illness doesn't need to be looked after 24/7. But taking care of my brain is a full-time job. And holding it still and making sure it stays balanced and making sure it doesn't fall over and shatter on the ground is a full-time job. And I'm tired. That is a baller analogy. See, this is what I love about sitting here and talking to you guys and finally just like... And it's same with when I talk to my therapist. I get these analogies that come out and I'm like, fucking bars, dude. Bars. Like, that was such a good way to explain that. When I have growing pains, sometimes, like, I don't have control over it. I just start crying. And it just needs to happen. So if I start crying, just ignore it. See, now I'm crying. But immediately it's starting to feel better. Let's see. What was I talking about? I go back to school in a couple weeks. This will be my last term. I'll be done beginning of December. And that's weird to think about. It's weird to think about not being in school anymore and not having, like, that yearly routine of like start school in September, then you have winter break, then you have the spring, then you have summer break. Like that's gonna be the weirdest part, is not having like not necessarily the daily structure, but the yearly structure. That's gonna be weird. And it was weird during my gap year because I took a gap year and I didn't have that like sort of structure. So it's gonna be weird for December to come around and then January to come around and then I just never go back until I'm 28 and have an identity crisis and go to grad school. I've tried not to think about it too much, I think because the concept of that is a little overwhelming, the idea of like never going back to school. Overwhelming in a very positive way. I am not meant for the public education system. I was not made for that. I'm convinced nobody was made for that, but that's a whole nother conversation. And I'm gonna turn 22. 22. Which is such a bummer. I'm 1 year off. Because my birthday is September 23rd. And if only I was born in the year 2000, I could have been turning 23 on the 23rd in 2023. Bit of a bummer, because that would have been very, very cool. Part of me feels like 18, but then the other part of me feels like a solid 25. Age is becoming a very weird thing. As everybody around me shifts from being a teenager into their 20s and even their 30s, the concept of age is becoming very skewed and very different for me. And it's kind of cool. It's a little creepy, but it's kind of cool. What's interesting is like when I was a kid, and would have met somebody who was like 30, somebody who was 30, there's been like, that person's kind of not old as in like, ew, you're old, but like that's an older person. But now when I meet people who are 30, I'm like, oh, they're so young. I'm like 30 is the new like 20. I'm like, ooh, they're so cool. They're like a teenager. They're like 30. Just how like when you were like 10, it'd be like, whoa, they're like 16. They're like cool and 16 and like young and fun and funky. I don't know. It's interesting. That whole concept will probably change for me. I had this concept that I thought of not too long ago of feeling like what was I doing? Well, I was looking through old photos. I was looking through old pictures and it became very clear, like, you know, during my gap year and after high school, there's been a very obvious shift in my brain, in my mindset towards life and what people think of me and who I am in a very positive way. And that person was always there. I'm not necessarily like a completely different person in the sense of like I have a completely different aesthetic and I act completely different, like not in that sense, but what it felt like was one day is like, say you're living in a house, right? You've been living in this house, this glass house your whole life, growing up and being in school and being in that bubble all the time, and you can see the outside, right? The whole house is glass and you can see the outside, but you're still it's blurry. It's hard to see. And then I feel like when you graduate high school, no, not even. Like halfway through college, there comes a time where the door unlocks in this house, in this glass house, and you can go outside. And going outside isn't the big deal. The big deal is being able to now see yourself inside this house from the outside. You're able to like see yourself. You unlock this ability to see yourself in the third person. And that really changed everything. And it was something I was not able to do, maybe a little bit. But I feel like when I was able to see myself, when that door unlocked, I don't know what unlocked it. You double. And there's a version of you still living inside the house, but then there's another version of you who's able to stand outside the house and look at you inside the house and how you relate to everything going on the outside of the house. And sometimes social media takes that away. Social media is what takes away that third person perspective. When you fall down a social media hole and you start comparing yourself, Now all of a sudden you're back in that house and that house is locked and you can only see the outside. You can only look out of the house. You can't step outside the house. It's like being inside of a plane versus being on the ground and watching a plane fly by. It's like growing up, you're inside this plane and you don't know how big the plane is. You don't know where the plane is in the sky. You don't know if you're in the sky, if you're on the ground. All you know is that you're in this plane and you are very limited to this plane. You have no context to what the plane is doing, but everybody's talking about how, oh, the plane is no big deal. Things are different, and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about because I can't see it. And then one day you're able to walk off the plane and see the plane in the sky instead of being in it. The plane's still there. You're just like, oh shit, that's what's been going on, but I've been stuck inside of that. But I'm able to see how small the plane is compared to everything else. My leg hurts really bad. I think I'm going to try to fall asleep with my heating pad in between my legs to try to make my growing pain go away. Not my groin, growing. It's in I get it really bad, like in my, inner thigh. Oh, and it's like going down my leg into my shin. So I'm going to stop complaining because that helps nobody except for a doctor to figure out what I'm feeling. Sorry this, wasn't funny. I just had to, spit some metaphorical bars for a little bit. But I love you, and hopefully next time we chat, I'll have my rainbow microphone. And hey, Jazz, I don't know when you're watching this, but you're doing great. You probably don't feel like you're doing great, but I am currently standing outside of the house and can see inside of the house and can tell you you're okay. Okay. Good night, everybody.